Okay, so as some of you have probably figured out by now, this stuff gets recorded well in advance. It's Christmas time now. This won't be released until, I don't know, February or March or something. But I feel like the time has come to do a recap to bring us up to speed. The last number of weeks I've been letting you in on a bunch of the projects that I've got going, and I want to do a recap as to why we're doing a lot of this stuff. As I've said before, we're trying to bring bench rest practices into the hunting world realm, and furthermore, and also, we are attempting to control the recoil impulse of really, really large calibers. Really, really large chamberings. Big recoil impulses. Not so much big calibers as big chamberings. Things that are putting 5,000 to 6,000 pounds of energy into the system. And I've told you and I've showed you a lot of the different ways that we've been doing that. We've pretty well licked the bolt-in PPC paradigm. I've got 5 bolt-in PPCs that are working just fine. And we'll probably go through more of those in later days. But for right now, I feel like at the risk of losing where we are, I've been just doing a lot of work. I've been working with Cerakoting. I've been working with cleaning up some of these stocks. And in the meantime, some of my projects that I've talked about have failed, or I've changed direction on them, as is my want. I change direction all the time. But number one, we're trying to bring bench rest procedures into more usable guns. Number two, I've had this fixation on being able to see bullet holes at 600 yards. And I have shown to myself, proven to myself, that I can pretty consistently see 30 caliber bullet holes at 600 yards. Now, it's hard to make a 30 caliber gun shoot as well as a 6mm gun or a 6.5 gun. I've got some 6.5 Creedmoors that are shooting just fine. 30 cals hit you a lot harder. And the 30 cal doesn't really gain anything in the arena of 600 and 1,000 yard shooting, because the bullets are really don't fly that much better than a 6.5 bullet or a 6mm bullet, which are proven. Now, the problem is I can't see. I've got some good scopes. I can't see bullet holes, and I think it would be really nice to be able to see bullet holes at 1,000, or well, maybe not at 1,000, but at least at 600. In good conditions here on the West Coast, once in a great while I can see 6mm bullet holes, but essentially it's a non. So, 30 cal is number one, but here we're looking at 550, maybe 600 BCs, maybe even a little higher, but with unproven bullets. Bullets that... So, I've decided I'm also going to start playing with 338s for 600 and 1,000. I've got a great 338 WSM reamer, and I can push these 300 grain OTMs really well with a bunch of different things. I play with 338 378s. My 338 McCallum is a tested and proven thing. I'm working on, I'm taking information off of a lot of success with the McCallum. As I've explained, the problems with the McCallum are the big, huge case and the disruptions to the system. So, I've also developed recently this case I'm calling the 338 Hellbringer, which is no better or worse than a 338 Edge, or not much better than a 338 RUM. I like it a lot better than the 338 378 because I can make dies that work. So, I've got dies that work fine with the McCallum, which is on the 338 Lapua case. The reason I've gone to this, what I'm calling the Hellbringer case, is number one, I'm infatuated with the 35-degree shoulder for resizing. I find that I can hold it, I can resize it, and I can keep it from bouncing without having to anneal. Now, this isn't a diatribe against annealing. I'm going to put this thing on manual. I just realized she's clicking away merrily here, and we don't really like the clicking. So I'm just going to I'm going to show a whole bunch of stuff. For competition, I want to start pushing 338 WSM 300 OTM, or 300 grain OTMs with a WSM. And again, I'm having trouble with it disrupting the system. So I'm trying to get my big red, white, and blue gun working. And while I'm doing this, I also want to work with some hunting style stocks. Now, in the interim, I chambered up a 338 Hellbringer in the left-handed MPI stock. And I wasn't happy with it. I got it down to about 3/4 minute, but it's a little raggedy. I feel like the stock is flexing, even though I put a chassis in it. And unfortunately, the reason that clinched that was I bolted it into an HS Precision stock. Now I have ethical problems with HS Precision because of Lon Horiuchi, but the HS Precision stock is a test bed for me. It works really, really well. It's got an aluminum bedding block. I've also had success with the Hogue overmolded rubber stocks, but unfortunately that has some issues. That's hunting only. So I'm going to try the Wooks. Got them ordered out, and I'm going to try my laminated wood stock, which has radically changed directions. So I'm going to pan on down here and start showing and drawing and giving you some pictures. Maybe before I pan down, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to pan over and show you my setup on for my bat, because the bat is okay. The bat is a great big octagonal action. The problems that I have with this big octagonal action are that I don't want to build an action wrench specifically for it. So what I've done is I've taken an action wrench that's kind of a universal, and I put it on the flats. I put a flat on this side, and I put the flats of the 45 on these sides, which I did have the action milled at a 45, so everything works there. And then I'm forced to take a caliper. I don't know if I can show you this here, but I caliper both sides. As I tighten it very slowly, I caliper both sides and I walk this down without putting any weird stresses on the action. I just wanted to share that because I feel like with an outside action wrench, it's important that you tighten down. Here I've got pressure here, I've got pressure here, I've got pressure here, and I can tighten this down solidly enough that it doesn't scar the action. Or I haven't yet. And the other thing is, you'll notice I have a sign on the wall here that says aluminum removal, muriatic acid. I wanted to share that because a lot of the guns that I've built, there's a lot of stuff here that I've done and been doing that's not on video because it's long and it's boring. And one of the things I do with most of my hunting guns is I sandblast them. And a sandblasted barrel. Now, I also line this barrel base. I use flat strips of aluminum and I shim. These have been used over and over and over. You can see that they're bent, they're kind of deformed, they're kind of cupped to fit barrels. These will fit on a fairly small barrel. See, again, part of this whole, how do I put it, adapting to hunting type stuff is the smaller barrels that are used in the hunting type stuff. Little barrels and sandblasted and using these aluminum shims in my, now this is an aluminum vise, but I find that these shims will wrap around and grip a little better. And sometimes they'll leave a residue on the sandblasting of the barrel. Muriatic acid will take that off. So I just wanted to reiterate that when using these vices, get everything sized to fit correctly. I've got many different sizes of these. I have some that are actually turned out to various diameters so that I can fit cardstock in here, or so that I can fit different, and I will just tell you, as much as possible, I don't use cardstock because this 150 foot-pound thing is pretty big. And this is what I'm testing. I feel that with these big impulses, I need 150 foot-pounds. So I just wanted to click over there and show you quickly how I'm holding my big bat. And now we're going to go down and we're going to draw pictures again. Get get this lined up. We're going to draw pictures and we're going to do illustrations, and we're going to show you. This is now, well, let me pick back up here because I'm going to show you again one of the little tricks I've got for, I've mentioned before how much I use these little triangular tools. Well, here's an example. This gun is, well, you talk about resurrecting something from the last century. I whittled this pig out, well, I don't know, back in the 80s. And it's got a mercury recoil suppressor in here. It sloshes. And this was kind of prior to my messing with the 300 WSM. This was actually a 30-06 Ackley improved, and because I hate recoil, I had it built. It had old 600 action in here. As you can see, if those of you that are old will recognize this as 600 bottom metal. And it was a 30-06 Ackley improved, and I don't like the kick. So this thing, just another of my guns that's been just sitting around forever and ever and ever. And I decided I'm going to forevermore epoxy this plate into the bottom and make it into a big magazine setup. Set it up as an ADL. What I'm trying to do is stiffen this stock. We're back to this whole controlling the recoil impulse. And this doesn't mean that I can take something like the big, what I'm calling the Hellringer case, which is 6.5, 270, 30, 338, 375, whatever you want to make. Take the RUM case, blow it out to the specs I want, which is 10 TPI and 35 degree shoulder, and it just makes a case that I find very tractable. I love that case. The problem is, as much as we'd like to, we can't just build stuff on a long action with that big case and then load it down for shooting bench rest. It is too big for bench rest. It pushes that big 300 grain OTM at 2800 comfortably. I've been tuning them in about 2750. I can run them up to over 3000 with a long barrel, but with a short barrel, again, BR, 600 yards, trying to see bullet holes. And I'm thinking maybe, as I said, my brain is, I'm constantly changing, and that's why I'm doing this update video. But I just wanted to show you what I'm doing with this stock. And this here, this is so cool. I wanted to share yet again how quick and easy this is Bondo, of course. And this has just been a very quick, comfortable way. I can just throw stuff, epoxy stuff in, Bondo up the holes, scratch at it with this scraper, and bam, I'm in business. So what I'm going to do with this old geezer is I'm going to change the contour subtly and clean it up and paint it. The Cerakoting thing is going along really well. So the Cerakoting, and what I'm talking about now is my redneck Cerakoting thing. Not too long ago, just within the last little bit, I showed you my redneck Cerakoting setup. Well, here's some things that I've done. I took, this is a stock that I call the homemade stock. I had MPI build this back in the day. They made it 200 thousandths wider. It's got an enormous ADL magazine hole in under here. And it was, if anything, even uglier than the MPI stock that I've got on my left-handed setup. So, this was my first attempt at throwing some paint on it. And then I took the left-handed setup, and the main reason I feel that it's important, I'm going to probably change this again because I'm not happy with the busyness of the paint, but I had a bunch of old colors. We did a funky, some really crazy Cryptek jobs here a while back with bright greens and bright golds and bright colors. And they're awesome, but they're a ton of work. I don't know if I'll ever do them again. So I just started dabbing on this thing. But I want to show you that this is now the left-handed MPI stock that you've been watching me build. And now it's all filled. It's put in, the chassis system is glued in, mudded in, cleaned up. Now whether I strip this right back down, sand it off, and blot it out and make it look good, this was something that I'd had niggling in the back of my mind. What if I made one really, really busy and just threw the paints and the color? You'll notice this side's a little brighter than this side. That's on purpose. This is how I experiment. If push came to shove, and I never got anything else done with this, and you'll recognize it is my point. As we're moving forward, I'm trying to structure this as a learning channel. And as a learning channel, I draw pictures. I may bore a lot of you right to death, but that's neither here nor there. I'm doing it to try to pass on all this weird stuff I've got, and now it's starting to get weird. This is why I feel like we need a recap. 30 cals and 338s, trying to get into a heavy duty BR setup so I can see bullet holes way out there. The 338 Hellbringer is great, but I can't, you know, it's funny because I think of pool and I think of golf. I've never been golfing in my life, but the way I understand it, when I'm shooting pool, I use one pool cue and I adjust my strength of my stroke depending on the shot. When you're doing golf, the way I understand it is you, instead of adjusting your swing or your power, you use a different club. Two different ways to change what happens to the ball, to change the power that you're adding into the system. I do something, I've got a reloader set up right here. This is actually, well, I don't know if I want to go over, but right here to the side, there is, trust me, a reloading setup. You know what, I'm going to do it, just to show you what I'm talking about. That right up there says, I'm going to turn it and see if I can not spill. This is another example of, this is called my kitty load. I can take a 12 gauge shotgun and I can load it down. 13 grains of 700X, 350 grains of, I don't know, big white cotton ball. Okay, this is permanently set up. This is the mech system set up so that I can shoot with kids. Set up kids loads that shoot like a 410 in little light 12 gauges. Now recently I've been getting into 410s, but that's neither here nor there. The point is we're trying to cover all these different things. And so that's what I'm trying, this is why I'm doing this as a recap, to bring you back up to speed. At this point I've tested the 338 Hellbringer. I'm totally happy with it. I think it'll do everything that the 338 Lapua case McCallum would do. But now the problem is, I'm trying to come up, so I just ordered a couple of Wook stocks to see if they're going to work out. I do still have two old HS Precision stocks with the full aluminum bedding blocks. And then furthermore, I'm going to do two other things that nobody's heard of yet. I'm going to take this chassis system that I keep talking about and I'm going to add an extension onto the front of it. I'm going to take a chassis, add more aluminum, and try to spread that recoil, because here's the problem that we're running into. I've already decided that, for instance, one of the things that you saw earlier was that right here we've got a recoil lug that's threaded. This is going away. This whole system, I did test it. I didn't even bore you with the details on it. This is a recoil lug threaded for a pull down. I don't know if you can see the threads in there. This, going away. That's all history. And here's the reason. Typical rifle action. See if I can draw rifle action here. Okay. Got a pull down screw back here and a pull down screw back here. And traditionally with a solid bottom, bench rest setup, you can bolt down here and here and you got a nice solid transfer so that when that recoil impulse tries to bend the system, this resists that bending. Solid bottom, XP1, the problem's been recognized forever. Now I want to be able to cut that big hole out of there. So I've been playing with a pull down here, double pull downs. That recoil lug I just threw away was a pull down here. Now the problem is that if I use just this section right here, when that barrel tries to bend and flex up, this is too short a surface for all this stuff to work. That's why this has gone away. There's only about an inch between these two screws. So I'm deciding if I'm going to eliminate this back screw or make it of less effect, I need to somehow spread out this area. So this is my latest. This I got to throw this in here. This you're going to see. These are pull downs that go farther out in the system. I'm looking at pull down screw here, a pull down screw here, a chassis system here to stiffen this as much as possible, recoil lug, another thing right here to push the barrels up so that I can get my inch 350 bearing, and then somewhere out in here, this is where it's going to start getting weird. You're going to start seeing this. I'm going to take these things and spread them out 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 inches and put a pull down out here on the barrel so that this becomes a similar length to this action. Take this whole levering assembly that we have here, move it forward by using, these are actually hose clamps. I've got bags of hose clamps. I'm taking this thing pretty seriously. And figure out a way to hook these around the barrel and use them for maybe a tuning lug, but mainly to spread this impulse so that the other thing that that does is when this normal system reacts and that barrel tries to go up right here, all of the flex occurs in the first few threads of this joint. That separation occurs. The rear threads of this threaded barrel joint are just floating in here. But these first three or four or five actually will pivot, and this is why my whole barrel nutting thing went away. This is why it was such a failure. Now, one of the things that's going to happen is when I move this up here, this is a test that I'm just now throwing at you guys. I've known about it for years. I've never done one yet. I've never built one. I've been collecting the parts. I had to go through all this testing to get to this point. This moves the flexure point out here. So when this barrel tries to flex upward, it's now flexing here instead of flexing here, which transmits the impulse. The barrel's trying to bend, and this now becomes a directly up and down motion. It gets rid of all that stress on the barrel joint. So I'm putting this in here just because I feel like I want to keep you abreast of the development as they're going. So Merry Christmas, even though you're getting this later in the year. And hopefully this will serve to bring you up to some, again, of the whys I'm doing this and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish here. I'm not just willy-nilly throwing ideas around for the fun of throwing ideas. I'm trying to solve some problems. And this channel is an attempt at sharing my problem-solving successes and failures as time goes on. So look forward to seeing some of this stuff in the next episodes, and hopefully we can make some big guns shoot by changing the way the forces act on this wimpy little action that's got a repeater, a magazine cutout in the bottom of it, so that we can get away from this single shot paradigm that's been the standard of the industry for so long. Let's see how it goes. Bear with me.